Could Pete Hegseth be on his way out at the Department of Defense? A new report from NPR says that may be the case.
The report says that the White House has begun the search for a new Secretary of Defense after Hegseth was once again caught sharing classified information in a second Signal chat. Now, that chat included members like Hegseth's wife, brother, and personal lawyer.
However, White House officials deny they are looking for Hegseth's replacement, and President Trump himself says he is standing by his cabinet.
The president absolutely has confidence in Secretary Hegseth. I spoke to him about it this morning, and he stands strongly behind him.
Pete's doing a great job. Everybody's happy with him. Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thanks, Ask the Houthis how he's doing.
The White House and Department of Defense, they both say the reason this story is a story at all is due to several disgruntled former employees, including Dan Caldwell, who I discussed in my radar. He's Secretary Hegseth, the person Secretary Hegseth has accused of leaking information to the press.
Everything we do here is above board, trying to make sure that we safeguard information. In this point, those folks who were leaking, who have been pushed out of the building, are now attempting to leak and sabotage the president's agenda and what we're doing. And that's unfortunate. It's not what I do. It's not how we operate. None of this is based in reality.
But for many on Capitol Hill, a second Signal chat may be a bridge too far. One Republican on the Hill told our colleagues that there may be buyer's remorse. Then there's Republican Representative Don Bacon, the House Armed Services Committee member, telling us, quote, "I find it unacceptable and I wouldn't tolerate it if I was in charge." Well, you got to remember that Trump really championed behind Hegseth to get confirmed. This was someone he really rallied behind, as somebody who wasn't part of the status quo inside government type of individual who was being brought on. And now here he is in a lot of fire because he's been using this private phone and discussing military operations and treating it very casually, the role too casually, essentially.
The Trump administration, however, takes the position, and I've heard people in MAGA world articulate this, it's a no scalps viewpoint. They will not fire anyone. They will not discipline anyone because there's a hit piece on them in the mainstream media. They're not listening to the mainstream media anymore. The media has no power over what Republicans and conservatives decide to do. Conservative media has some power over what Republicans and conservatives decide to do. There might be internal conversations taking place about Hegseth's future. Even if that was the case, Caroline Leavitt wouldn't say so because they're not going to make decisions based on what The Atlantic thinks or what the New York Times reports or any of that. That's just, I'm not saying that's good or bad. That is just what the way Republicans in the second Trump administration are operating. Now, as I said in my radar, my greatest concern is conflict with Iran. That there is a major push from certain neoconservative Republicans. Lindsey Graham has wanted war with Iran for a long time. Mainstream thinkers in both parties. The government of Israel wants greater military confrontation between the U.S. and Iran. And I think that is to be avoided at all costs. I am very concerned that Dan Caldwell, who has been pushed out and accused of leaking, even though he steadfastly denies he leaked to the press, and he certainly was not responsible for Signalgate, was one of the people fighting against that. This is very concerning to me. Trump won on an America First foreign policy. That's what J.D. Vance wants to implement, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'm open to the idea that Hegseth could be or should be replaced by someone who will carry out that policy more faithfully or even just operate in a more efficient managerial style. But
basic levels of accountability here.
Well, the basic accountability, again, should be Mike Waltz for getting Jeffrey Goldberg in that.
Sure. I mean, there's several, right? But Caldwell has also said, and we're theorizing here, but he has said himself that this may be a personal vendetta. So he's tossed out different ideas himself.
And not from Hegseth, from other from career bureaucrat staffers who want to enact, I think, a policy agenda that's contrary to what Donald Trump articulated. That's the frustration. So many people in the Republican base have so many just independent, alternative perspectives that, like, our view is actually popular, is the view of the people. That we don't want more war.
Views, but different views when you're in government. I mean, I would just to play devil's advocate here. Different views within a cabinet, different views being brought into your inner circle. That's a good thing.
I agree with that.
Right. It's a good thing. We should be having discussions, just not on a open line like Signal Chat, right?
Yeah.
But we should be having discussions about what's best for the government. War or not, I'm just saying it seems like sometimes there's a silo effect of, well, we're not going to do this and we're not going to listen to anyone else. And that's, I think, part of the problem with the way both Democrats and Republicans are operating right now. Republicans should be paying attention to what legacy media is doing and also alternative media. Shouldn't be shutting anybody out right now. It's all fair game.
Yeah, the reality is the hawk perspective is going to be represented and going to be listened to, and that's fine. There should be a healthy discussion and debate taking place about what the foreign policy should be, like we actually saw in the chat when it was leaked, that J.D. Vance and Hegseth and others discussed whether the strike on the Houthis was a good idea, with J.D. Vance pushing back on it, but saying, I will ultimately support whatever decision we come to. Yes, I think it's appropriate to have those discussions. Now, it might not be appropriate to have them on Signal.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Care as much about that, but fine.
I understand it's not your thing.
I'm not a procedure. I'm like a big picture philosophy. Like whether we have World War III to me is just is a matter of such greater consequence. And there are actual forces advocating for it within the Trump administration and without. And who wins this fight it just could matter tremendously.
Doesn't that even go then to the point that we need somebody in leadership that has high-ranking government experience and not Hegseth, who is a former Fox News host without high-ranking government?
Doesn't mean you're going to. Some of the most experienced people are the most hawkish of all. So experience. It's not to me about experience. It's about what you actually believe and whether you can be trusted to carry out the policy.
Fair. Okay, if you go that route, but what about processes? And this is how we carry things out, and we do things in a war room. We don't do things in a. He was apparently even told when he was using his private phone, "Don't use your private phone." Just blatantly ignoring things.
He shouldn't use the private phone. I'm not going to fight on that one. It's trivial to me.
Just saying. I mean, these are basic things that I feel like anyone who had any common sense would actually be doing. If I was in a government role, and I'm not, was in a government role tomorrow, I wouldn't use my private phone. Like, it's just common sense. So you need the accountability, and I think this is where actually, I'm not speaking for all Trump voters, but I think that a large amount of the American public does want accountability for these kinds of actions when they do happen, even if you're a MAGA supporter.
No, I just think the most likely thing, if Hegseth is gotten rid of and all these people are gotten rid of, is that yes, then you will have some career, professional, government type person who, is not leaking any conversations anywhere. It's all taking place behind closed doors, and behind closed doors they will decide to bomb Iran. And that will be bad.
Well, we don't know that. And
that's
hopefully they would come in with foreign policy experience as well.
But people with foreign policy experience do want to bomb Iran. That's my fear.
Not everyone wants to do. I mean, it depends on the individual. So I think experience goes a long way. That's all I'm saying.
Up next, was the pandemic shutdown really necessary? Our next guest says, nope. We'll discuss with David Zweig. He's out with a new book, our beloved guest.